This is where the flame of liberty burns bright. This is the Jason Veely Program.
Hello, my friends. Jason Veely here. This is the Jason Veely Program. Boy, do I have a show for you today. Lots to cover, lots of sound bites. Thanks for being here. If you want to get in touch with me, the email address is jasonveleyradio@gmail.com. That's JAYSONVELEY radio@gmail.com. So, yesterday and today, Mark Zuckerberg testified before Congress. And I have some sound bites from yesterday and some from today. As I understand it, I think it's still ongoing right now. The audio clips that I'm going to play aren't exhaustive. It doesn't cover everything. There's no way I could, cover all the sound bites, all of the information that we learned in these hearings in a single episode. But I'll do my damn best, and I'll analyze Zuckerberg's responses as best I can. But first, before I get to the sound bites, let me just say that I've heard some conservatives on social media saying that these hearings with Zuckerberg aren't going to accomplish anything. And, to a certain extent, they're right. I really wouldn't be surprised if Zuckerberg laughed his way out today and said, yeah, these idiots, they think that I'm really going to change here. They think that I'm really going to get to the bottom of this conservative censorship. That will likely happen, to be honest, but I wouldn't go as far as saying that these hearings didn't accomplish anything. Number one, it's, I believe, humiliating Mark Zuckerberg and exposing him, and that's exactly what should have happened a long time ago. This is long overdue. And if you ask me, frankly, Mark Zuckerberg, he might be a nice guy, but for the way he runs Facebook, for the way his team censors conservatives and so on and so forth, I do think that he deserves to be humiliated. And also, let me just say that I think that these hearings are starting to bring Facebook into the realm of Washington, D.C. Now, in 99.9% of other scenarios, I would say that anything coming into the realm of Washington, D.C. was bad news. But as I've made clear on yesterday's show, and I think the show before yesterday, I do support the idea at this point of Congress getting involved and proposing and potentially passing legislation that would protect free speech on Facebook and on social media in general. I do support that. I think that the role of government is to preserve the free society, to protect our individual liberties, and if it means protecting the freedom of speech on Facebook, on social media, or more broadly the internet, then I'm for it. Now, of course, I understand that when the government gets involved with things tend to go bad, and there's always the possibility of government controlling the internet, government coming in and determining what can and can't be said, and that's a whole other problem, a bigger problem, I would add, than just Facebook censoring who can and can't speak. And so I acknowledge that government getting involved here, there is some risk to it. But I think that if we had a team of staunch conservatives, of liberty-loving individuals in Washington, D.C., write and propose legislation with specific language and make it clear that the point of said legislation is to preserve the freedom of speech, then I'm all for it. The language would have to be foolproof. But I think that going forward, that is our best solution. I really do. But anyway, I just wanted to say that. So I'm glad that this is starting to get in the realm of Washington, D.C. Our elected representatives are starting to pay attention to the censorship on Facebook. It's good that we're having this debate. So to say that this is accomplishing nothing, I don't buy it. All right, let me get into some of these sound bites here. First, I'll start with Ben Sassy, or is it Sass? I was never sure how to pronounce his name. I've been saying it Sassy for all my life. Some people say Sass. I don't know, but anyway, he questioned Mark Zuckerberg, and I think that his line of questioning was pretty good. So here's what he had to say. Take a listen.
You may decide, or Facebook may decide, it needs to police a whole bunch of speech that I think America might be better off not having policed by one company that has a really big and powerful platform. Can you define hate speech?
Senator, I think that this is a really hard question. And
all right.
I think it's one of the reasons.
It might be hard for him to answer, but this was a very important question. You know why? Because this is what Facebook uses as justification to censor conservative content. Oh, this is hate speech. This is unsafe to the community. And so I'm glad that Ben Sassy is taking it to Mark Zuckerberg now and forcing him to define what the hell hate speech is. And as you'll hear in a minute, it sounds to me like even Mark Zuckerberg doesn't know how to define hate speech, even though they use it to justify the censorship of conservative voices on their platform. Keep listening.
Why we struggle with it. There are certain definitions that we have around calling for violence or
let's just agree on that. If somebody's calling for violence, that shouldn't be there. I'm worried about the psychological categories around speech.
Now that excuse that, I think we could both agree here that violence and, calls for violence on Facebook shouldn't be allowed. You're going to hear that, and I believe every single soundbite that I play. It was like Mark Zuckerberg's go-to. Well, he'd be asked a question about censorship, and he'd immediately go to, I think we could both agree that, calls for violence on this platform are unacceptable. But in 99% of the cases, calls for violence isn't the problem. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about conservatives who are trying to express their opinions on Facebook. That's what we're talking about. And it's frustrating to hear Mark Zuckerberg, time and time again, hide behind that excuse. Behind that talking point. Again, you'll hear it probably about 3 or 4 more times over the course of this show. All right, keep listening.
You used language of safety and protection earlier. We see this happening on college campuses all across the country. It's dangerous. 40% of Americans under age 35 tell pollsters they think the First Amendment is dangerous because you might use your freedom to say something that hurts somebody else's feelings. Guess what? There are some really passionately held views about the abortion issue on this panel today. Can you imagine a world where you might decide that pro-lifers are prohibited from speaking about their abortion views on your content, on your platform?
I certainly would not want that to be the case.
But it might really be unsettling to people who've had an abortion to have an open debate about that, wouldn't it?
It might be, but I don't think that would fit any of the definitions of what we have. But I do generally agree with the point that you're making, which is as we're able to technologically shift towards especially having AI proactively look at content, I think that's going to create massive questions for society about what obligations we want to require companies to fulfill. And I do think that's a question that all right,
but this problem of conservative censorship isn't a result of technology moving to artificial intelligence. This has been going on for quite some time. And it's becoming a pattern at this point. It really is. So don't throw out the, as we move to artificial intelligence and we start using algorithms, this is something that society has to tackle. No. Cut the bull. Cut the bull. Like you have no control over this. Like you bear no responsibility. I don't buy that for 1 second. I really don't. And you shouldn't either, folks. You shouldn't either. All right, keep listening.
Struggle with as a country, because I know other countries are, and they're putting laws in place And I think that America needs to figure out and create the set of principles that we want American companies to operate under.
Thanks. I wouldn't want you to leave here today and think there's sort of a unified view in the Congress that you should be moving toward policing more and more and more speech. I think violence has no place on your platform. Sex traffickers and human traffickers have no place on your platform. But vigorous debates, adults need to engage in vigorous debates.
They absolutely do. I mean, debate is what really this country was founded on, right? Debates, having conversations. How can a society possibly advance? Or to use a liberal term, how can a society progress if we're not talking to each other? If we're not talking to each other. Now you'll notice, did Mark Zuckerberg define hate speech? Wasn't that the original question? How do you define hate speech? And then he went off like on a tangent and didn't define it, which leads me to believe that he has no idea how to define it. And that is shocking to me, folks, because again, hate speech, quote unquote, unsafe to the community in the case of Diamond and Silk, this is the justification that they use all the time when censoring conservatives. And they can't even define it. You know why they can't define it? Because to many of them, and not just Mark Zuckerberg, but I'm talking about a lot of people on his team. In fact, I'd argue most people on his team, most people in Silicon Valley, and so on and so forth. You know why, folks? Because to them, hate speech is conservative speech. Hate speech equals conservative speech in their minds. That's the truth. Don't shoot the messenger. I'm just telling it how it is. That's all. Anyway, so that was Ben Sasse questioning Mark Zuckerberg on how he defines hate speech. We didn't get an answer because he doesn't know or because he doesn't want to answer. He might know, but he doesn't want to say, well, we define hate speech as conservative speech. Anyway, let's get on to this because you're going to like this next clip. Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz hammered this guy in typical Ted Cruz fashion. It was fantastic. Listen to this.
There have been numerous instances with Facebook. In May of 2016, Gizmodo reported that Facebook had purposely and routinely suppressed conservative stories from trending news, including stories about CPAC, including stories about Mitt Romney, including stories about the Lois Lerner IRS scandal, including stories about Glenn Beck. In addition to that, Facebook has initially shut down the Chick-fil-A Appreciation Day page, has blocked a post of a Fox News reporter, has blocked over 24 Catholic pages, and most recently blocked Trump supporters Diamond and Silk's page with 1.2 million Facebook followers after determining their content and brand were, quote, unsafe to the community. To a great many Americans, that appears to be a pervasive pattern of political bias. Do you agree with that assessment?
Senator, let me say a few things about this.
All right, so stop. He doesn't answer the question, does he? It's never just yes or no. Yes, I agree. No, I don't agree. It's always, Senator, let me say a few things about this. And then he just doesn't answer the question. He's like a politician. It's like this guy has been in Washington, D.C. for 30 years. Keep listening as he doesn't answer the question.
First, I understand where that concern is coming from because Facebook and the tech industry are located in Silicon Valley, which is an extremely left-leaning place.
All right, that's no surprise to anybody. Of course, Silicon Valley is an extremely left-leaning place. That doesn't mean that you, the head of Facebook, the CEO of Facebook, the founder of Facebook, have to accept a left-wing slant when it comes to censorship on your platform, Mark Zuckerberg. I don't buy that as an excuse. I'm sorry, but I don't. Again, you have to take some responsibility here. This guy's talking like, he's just an employee that Facebook just found on the streets and hired, 5 days ago. He's the founder of Facebook. Of course he has control over this. Of course he has control over which content is permitted and what's not. And yet he's acting like, well, I don't know. Well, we'll have to look into it. Well, he's not answering the questions, and so on and so forth. All right, keep listening.
And this is actually a concern that I have and that I
No,
try
it's
to root
not.
out in the company is making sure that we don't have any bias.
All
in
right,
the work.
stop. If this is a concern that you have, bias on your platform, why the hell is it a pattern at this point? Why has it been going on and on and on? Can you answer that question? Or are you just so concerned about it now because you're sitting in front of a bunch of ticked off conservatives? Keep listening.
That we do, and I think it is a fair concern that that people would at least wonder about.
Let me ask this
Now,
question. Are you aware of any ad or page that has been taken down from Planned Parenthood?
Now, this is great. Listen.
Senator, I'm not, but let me just...
How about MoveOn.org?
Sorry?
How about MoveOn.org?
I'm not specifically aware of those.
How about any Democratic candidate for office?
I'm not specifically aware. I mean, I'm not sure.
In your testimony, you say that you have 15 to 20,000 people working on security and content review. Do you know the political orientation of those 15 to 20,000 people engaged in content review?
I do.
No, Senator. We do not generally ask people about their political orientation when they're joining the company.
So as CEO, have you ever made hiring or firing decisions based on political positions or what candidates?
Can I ask a question? Didn't this guy just say that most of Silicon Valley is left-leaning? I believe he said extremely left-leaning, right? Didn't he say that? But when it comes to him and his staff, well, he doesn't know. They might be a bunch of independents for all he knows. They're just moderates. They don't base who they hire on political affiliation. Unbelievable.
Supported?
No.
Why was Palmer Luckey fired?
That is a specific personnel matter that seems like it would be inappropriate to
You
speak
just made
to
a
here.
specific representation that you didn't make decisions based on political views.
Well,
Is that accurate?
I can commit that it was not because of a political view.
Do you know of those 15 to 20,000 people engaged in content review, how many, if any, have ever supported financially a Republican candidate for office?
Senator, I do not know that.
Your testimony says it is not enough that we just connect people. We have to make sure those connections are positive. It says we have to make sure people aren't using their voice to hurt people or spread misinformation. We have a responsibility not just to build tools, to make sure those tools are used for good. Mr. Zuckerberg, do you feel it's your responsibility to assess users whether they are good and positive connections or ones that those 15 to 20,000 people deem unacceptable or deplorable?
Senator, you're asking about me personally?
Facebook.
Come on.
Senator, I think that there are a number of things that we would all agree
stupid.
are clearly bad. Foreign interference in our elections, terrorism.
There it is again, folks! Didn't I say you'd hear it over and over again? Oh, I think we can agree this is not acceptable. Terrorism. We can't accept terrorism on our platform. That's not what we're talking about. All of those examples that Senator Cruz just listed. Did he once mention anything about terrorism? No. He mentioned Glenn Beck. He mentioned Diamond and Silk. Conservatives. That's what we're talking about. But no, he retreats to, I think we can all agree that calls for violence and terrorist propaganda should be banned from Facebook. Well, no kidding. Come on, quit the games here. Quit playing games. Keep listening.
I'm
Those
talking
are
about
things.
censorship.
Oh, well, I think that you would probably agree that we should remove terrorist propaganda
Oh
from
my
the service.
God.
So that, I agree, I think is
course
clearly
you
bad
do.
activity that we want to get down, and we're generally proud of how well we do at that. Now, what I can say, and I do want to get this in before the end here, is that I'm very committed to making sure that Facebook is a platform for all ideas.
No, then why has this been going on for as long as it has? If you're so committed, what's with the censorship? Why has it been allowed to continue? Obviously, you're not doing a damn thing about it. Now, he didn't answer Cruz's question. Cruz's question was in the context of conservatives on Facebook. He wants to talk about terrorism. Unbelievable. This guy is running away from what I believe he knows is an all-out assault on conservative voices on Facebook. That's what this is. Now, let me ask a question to Mark Zuckerberg. We've heard from Ben Sasse. We've heard from Ted Cruz. Now you're going to hear from Jason Veely. Mark Zuckerberg, what are you going to do to promote free speech on your platform? What are you going to do? It should now be abundantly clear to you that there are millions of people out there who are concerned about censorship on your platform. What are you going to do to fix it? What are you going to do to bring Facebook not in the direction of regulation and censorship and suppression of political ideas, but rather in the direction of free speech, First Amendment rights, and so on and so forth? You going to do anything? Or are you just going to walk out of there and laugh your ass off and say, these idiots think that I'm going to change? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? This is no laughing matter. I sure as hell am not laughing. I'll be right back.
The Jason Veely program is on the air. Get used to it. Defeating big government with an even bigger voice. This is the Jason Veely program.
So, Mark Zuckerberg, you say that you admit, as a matter of fact, that Silicon Valley is an extremely left-leaning place, right? My question to you is, what are you, the founder and CEO of Facebook, going to do to ensure that Silicon Valley does not discriminate against people who do not share their political ideology? That is, conservatives. What are you going to do? How are you going to control Silicon Valley? I don't even think he knows, to be perfectly honest. I do have a couple more sound bites, folks, but first, a quick announcement. It's come to my attention that Paul Ryan will not be seeking re-election, and this just calls for my music. Dust off this old one. Hallelujah! Yes, I'm happy about this. Hallelujah. Adios, Paul Ryan. Goodbye, and frankly, good riddance. Look, folks, nothing personal about the guy. I'm sure he's a nice guy and all, but we need new blood in the GOP. And I'm not going to, start a rant about this right now because we're talking about the Facebook hearing. But we really do need new blood in the Republican Party. And Paul Ryan, again, I'm sure he was a nice guy. Nothing against him personally. But we need fighters. We need fighters. And so, yes, I'm honestly happy to see that Paul Ryan will be stepping down. So that's that. Just wanted to fill you in. And there we go. All right. Let's get back to these sound bites. This next one is from... well, actually, we just have a few minutes left before our break, but we could squeeze this one in. This one is from Marsha Blackburn of Tennessee, and she specifically brings up Diamond and Silk towards the end of her line of questioning. Here she is. Take a listen.
We've done one hearing on algorithms. I chair Communications and Technology Subcommittee here. We're getting ready to do a second one on algorithms. We're going to do one next week on prioritization. So I'd like to ask you, do you subjectively manipulate your algorithms to prioritize or censor speech?
The answer is yes. The answer is yes. I've covered this. Mark Zuckerberg just did an interview with Vox, the ultra left-wing online publication. And he was talking about a new system that Facebook rolled out in January, just a few months ago. A new system that boosts broadly trusted, were his words, media sources on the newsfeed, while simultaneously burying sources that are not broadly trusted, aka independent conservative news. So yes, Facebook does have algorithms in place that boost certain media sources and suppress others? The answer to this question that she just asked should be yes. But watch or listen rather, as Mark Zuckerberg pivots.
Congresswoman, we don't think about what we're doing as censoring speech. I think that there are types of content.
By the way, you ever see that hilarious Friends skit from the show Friends? Pivot! Anyway, keep listening.
Terrorism that I think that we all agree we do not want to have on our service. So we build systems that can identify those and can remove that content, and we're very proud of that work.
Let me tell you something right now. Diamond and silk is not terrorism.
Amen. Thank you for saying it. I just shot up out of my seat, folks. Thank you for saying it, Congresswoman. Diamond and silk, they're not terrorism. Glenn Beck, not terrorism. CPAC, not terrorism. Not a terrorist organization. These are conservatives with real legitimate opinions that we're talking about. So I want to thank her, Marsha Blackburn, for bringing the conversation back to conservative censorship. Zuckerberg tries to get away and make it about terrorist propaganda. It's not about terrorist propaganda. And by the way, this Congresswoman, Marsha Blackburn, you'll recall that she was the one who was censored by Twitter, I believe, after she tried to put out a pro-life ad. Twitter took it down. So she has some skin in the game, so to speak. She knows what it's like to be censored, and I'm assuming because of that, she takes this issue very, very seriously, as we all should, to be honest. But yes, Diamond and Silk, they're not a terrorist organization. They're not. Of course not. I mean, it's even stupid to say Diamond and Silk and terrorism in the same sentence, isn't it? Then why are they taking off of Facebook? Why are they taking off? Well, they're not taking off, but you know what I mean. They're being targeted. Anyway, in the next clip I'm going to play, we're going to take a quick break, but the final soundbite that I have for you is from Congressman Billy Long of Missouri. And he brings up Diamond and Silk yet again and really presses Mark Zuckerberg on this. And I'm glad he did it. It's good to point out these specific issues and hold Mark Zuckerberg's feet to the fire. So that's coming up, folks. Don't miss it. Back in a minute. All right, my friends, welcome back to the show. We've been spending time tonight talking about Mark Zuckerberg, Facebook censorship, and his testimony before Congress that actually happened over the course of 2 days, yesterday and today. We've gotten through sound bites from Ben Sasse and Ted Cruz, which were yesterday, and then today, before the break, we just heard a sound bite from Marsha Blackburn. And now I want to play one for you from, and this is the last one, by the way, and then I want to get to a few other things unrelated to Facebook before we wrap up the show. But anyway, this last soundbite is from Congressman Billy Long of Missouri, and he specifically brought up Diamond and Silk. At one point in the audio clip, you'll hear a pause, and what happens there is he has someone behind him holding up a picture of Diamond and Silk. And he basically says to Mark Zuckerberg, do you know who these two are? So I love this sort of in-your-face kind of aggression. Make him answer. Hold his feet to the fire. It's great stuff. All right, if I could find the soundbite here in my my playlist. Give me a minute. Here we go. Representative Billy Long, listen.
If I was you, a little bit of advice, Congress is good at two things, doing nothing and overreacting. So far, we've done nothing on Facebook. Since your inception in that Harvard dorm room many years ago, we've done nothing on Facebook. We're getting ready to overreact. So just take that as a shot across the bow warning to you. You've got a good outfit there on your front row behind you, that very bright folks. You're Harvard educated. I have a Yale hat that cost me $160,000. That's as close as I ever got to an Ivy League school. But I'd like to show you right now a little picture here.
This is of Diamond and Silk.
You recognize these folks?
I do.
Who are they?
I believe, is that Diamond and Silk?
That is Diamond and Silk, two biological sisters from North Carolina. I might point out they're African American. And their content was deemed by your folks to be unsafe. So, you know, I don't know what type of a picture this is, if it was taken in a police station or what, in a lineup, but apparently they've been deemed unsafe. Diamond and Silk have a question for you, and that question is, what is unsafe about two black women supporting President Donald J. Trump?
All right, stop. So what you should hear Mark Zuckerberg say, but you won't, but you should, is this was a mistake. There's nothing unsafe about them. They shouldn't be censored. You're right, this is political suppression. This is political bias on our platform. I'm not going to tolerate it. That's what you should hear him say. But once again, you know, he'll say, there's nothing unsafe about it, and then he'll go on into something else because he doesn't want to bear any responsibility for this. All right, listen to what he had to say.
Well, Congressman, nothing is unsafe about that. The specifics of this situation, I'm not as up to speed on as I probably would be if I didn't.
All right, you're full of crap. You're full of crap. Facebook has been targeting Diamond and Silk for about 7 months now. 7 months. I read. I'm well informed on this, folks. I've been talking a lot about it these past few days. Apparently, what happened in the case of Diamond and Silk is that followers of theirs on Facebook were no longer receiving notifications when they posted new content. That's what was going on. And so they waited 7 months to hear back from Facebook, and finally Facebook comes out and they say, well, you're unsafe to the community. So my question to Mark Zuckerberg is, in those 7 months that Diamond and Silk were being targeted, you knew nothing? You're not well informed about this? I call BS. I call BS, folks. This guy is lying in this case through his teeth. Through his teeth. There's no way he doesn't know about this. And remember what I said about, he's trying to act like, he's just another Facebook employee, not the founder, not the CEO. This is exactly what I mean. Remember when I said that he's acting like a politician? This is exactly what I mean. Who, me? I don't know anything about this. Like Obama. Oh, I first learned about this on the news like everybody else. All right, keep listening.
You have 20,000 employees, as you said, to check content, and I would suggest, as good as you are with analytics, that those 20,000 people, you do some analytical research and see how many conservative websites have been pulled down and how many liberal websites. One of our talk show hosts...
All right, see, let me stop. With all due respect to Representative Long, he should have come back and held Zuckerberg's feet to the fire and asked him the same question again, specifically related to Diamond and Silk. He should have done it because, again, we didn't get an answer. Really, did we? Anyway, keep listening. There's a few seconds left.
This morning on the radio said that if Diamond and Silk were liberal, they'd be on the late-night talk show circuit back and forth. They're
That's
humorous.
right.
They have their opinion. Not that you have to agree or that I have to agree, do agree, don't agree with them. But the fact that they're conservative, and I just remember, if you don't remember anything else from this hearing here today, remember, we do nothing and we overreact. And we're getting ready to overreact, so I would suggest you go home and review all these other things people have accused you of today. Get with your good team, they're behind you. You're the guy to fix this.
And there you go. There you go. Will he do that? Will he go home and get with his team and find a way to fix this? Who knows? Time will tell. I happen to believe that he won't. I happen to believe that this will continue. Mark Zuckerberg appeared before Congress because he felt compelled to. This is just kind of like, like a chore for him. All right, I got to get through this, and then we'll go back to our daily or our routine here. It's like if a kid's playing like a video game and having a blast with it, and then his parents call him downstairs to take out the trash. All right, I guess I got to do this, but then I'll go back to playing my video game. Same thing here. I really don't think that he's going to take these things to heart. Now, I hope I'm wrong. But I don't think I am. Now, again, with respect to Diamond and Silk, I know we keep coming back to this, folks, but that's intentional because it's good to point out specific examples and force Mark Zuckerberg to respond. In the case of Diamond and Silk, if Mark Zuckerberg really does believe that his platform is a platform for everybody, a platform where people can share their ideas, and so on and so forth, let me ask this. Why doesn't he, in 2 seconds, instruct his staff, hey, lay off of Diamond and Silk? And it's over. 2 seconds. He could do it in a text, for God's sakes. Hell, get on Facebook and send him a message. 2 seconds. Instruct his team, lay off of Diamond and Silk. You know, we might have been targeting them for about 7 months now, but we gotta really lay off. Why doesn't he do that? Instead, he plays dumb, doesn't he? Instead, he says, well, I'm not really familiar with this case. How in the hell are you not familiar with this case? And again, not just Diamond and Silk. Remember what Ted Cruz was saying when he pointed out all of those conservatives who have been suppressed. Whether it was Glenn Beck, I forget the others that he said. I know he mentioned CPAC. I believe he mentioned Mitt Romney. Is Mark Zuckerberg not informed about this either? This growing pattern of conservative censorship? Has he been living under a rock? Is he the CEO of Facebook? Good Lord, folks. It's infuriating. This guy is like a politician. He's like an eel trying to slip away from every single damn question. All right, that's enough about Facebook for tonight. More when I return on something different. Back in a minute. I'm sure that by the end of the day there will be more sound bites from Mark Zuckerberg, and if there's anything of interest, anything that needs to be addressed, we'll do so on tomorrow's program. Probably won't spend nearly as much time on this tomorrow as we did today, but we'll get to that tomorrow. All right, this situation in London, ladies and gentlemen, where they're now pushing for knife control, is getting so out of hand. I was scrolling through social media today, and I saw a picture that was originally posted by a credible news source based in the UK of a booth. It looked like it was outside of a gas station or some kind of grocery store or something like that. It was a booth, and it was asking the people of London to give up their knives. There was like a little slit in the booth, and they just kind of like a book return at a library. Just drop your knives in. And then it said something along the lines of only cowards need knives or something like that. And I just saw that, folks, and I'm scratching my head. They're losing their minds over there. They really are. I talked about this yesterday. And some of you might be wondering, why I'm spending as much time as I am talking about London and their push for knife control. Honestly, folks, there's a couple of reasons why I'm talking about it. Number one, I do think that this is a perfect example of progressive utopianism. Progressive utopianism. That's what this is. It's when basically the government comes in and they make a series of empty promises, aka hey, we can live in a society with much less crime, almost crime-free. And in exchange for these empty promises, which never get delivered upon, the people surrender their liberty. The right to defend themselves. This is utopianism in a nutshell. Now, of course, it doesn't just apply to knives and guns. It's everywhere. It's in the United States. It was here when Obama was promising, everybody would be insured under Obamacare and all the rest. This is what they do, the liberals. They promise us a city on top of a hill. They promise us a golden palace, a utopia. Utopia is never achieved because, first off, that's impossible because man is imperfect. And second of all, the only thing that happens in the pursuit of this utopia is the people have less rights, less property rights, less liberty. So that's one of the reasons why I'm talking about this. Number two is I fear that America's not far behind. I really do. I think that give it, I don't even know how long, 10, 15, 20 years, the same thing will happen in this country. And it really is a slippery slope. I know the liberals, love to criticize conservatives when they bring up the slippery slope argument, but it absolutely is. It absolutely is. There's no getting around that. First, it'll be AR-15s and semi-automatic rifles. Assault rifles, as they call them. Then it'll be, first of all, then crime won't stop, even when the AR-15 and semi-automatic rifles are banned. Crime won't stop, and so what they'll then do is they'll go out there and they'll say, well, we still have too much crime. Let's ban handguns. Let's turn the entire country into Chicago. Let's ban handguns. And they'll ban handguns. And then, just like what's happening in London, people will find other ways of committing crimes, whether it's with hammers or knives or what have you. And then the liberals will come out a third time, and they'll say, well, the crime rates are still too high. We need knife control. And this is the slippery slope I'm talking about. This is how it happens. We go down and down and down until we wake up one day and we say, what happened to us? What happened to us? And so I'm speaking out about this, folks, really, because I'm concerned. I'm concerned that London right now is a blueprint for the United States. You got this, the March for Our Lives. You got people all riled up about gun control and all the rest. I worry about our Second Amendment rights. Anyway, all right, my friends, I'll be back tomorrow. God bless, and God save this great nation.